Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello and welcome to Life List. Good to be back with everybody. I am here with both Alvaro Jaramillo and Molly Brown. Good to be with you guys today. I'll start with Molly. How's it going with you, Molly?
It's been great. Feels like fall, and fall is my favorite time of year and my favorite birding of the year. So I'm in a good mood.
Here. I am with you there. This is my favorite season as well. How about you, Alvaro? What are you doing?
I'm back in town at home. But it's a whirlwind several days, but a return from Spain, and had a couple of boat trips and etc. It's good.
Nice. Excellent. Nice. That's what we like to hear. Molly, what are you doing so far for fall? What have you been up to the last couple of weeks?
Well, I hate to say that I haven't got to do a ton of birding lately, but I have been out on a few good migration days. One of the highlights around here is that we have a pretty good pass through of Connecticut warblers, and they're early this year. I think about a week early or so that I've got out, and it's always a goal to go out and find some of them. I know you've seen them too over on your side of the Appalachians, George.
Yeah, it's been my best fall ever, and just like you say, it seems like they're moving early here as well. I've seen 4 already this year. I haven't gotten usually I'm lucky if I get 1 around here, but it's been good so far.
Four may be tied to how many I've seen in my entire life. So
yeah, I'm still waiting on the good photo.
Can we stop talking about them now?
Oh, no chance. No, we're just getting started.
Yeah, I've never seen one in the spring, but I've had 3 in one binocular view in the fall.
Jeez.
That's my standing record.
That's ridiculous.
I've never lived in Connecticut, so that radically decreases my chances. Or maybe
I am
it doesn't,
going to
right?
Connecticut every morning, so that's how I'm getting them.
Yeah, that's how I get my Philadelphia Vireos here. The one time I've ever seen them in Philadelphia. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't think I've seen a palm warbler on a palm, but there you go. These are just names, folks. They're not to be taken seriously. Well, maybe some of them are, actually. I didn't mean it to be like a political statement. I just thought...
Oh, boy.
You just changed the direction of our whole episode.
Really
I know. God, I just thought about that, I was just thinking about palms,
Alvaro, my goodness. Taking us down that road again. No, I mean, I was so psyched. I literally went out looking for Connecticut warblers in downtown Philly here. These Washington Square. Basically, it's a concrete jungle with this little patch of green in it, and right by Independence Hall there, a couple of folks had seen Connecticut warbler in another spot nearby, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to see if I can find Connecticut warbler at this spot I like going to. And, lo and behold, we had 2 right there. And one of them was just walking around on the lawn, acting like an American robin or something. It's just like hopping along right out in the open. Ridiculous. I still didn't manage to get good photos. A dog walker came by and it kind of flushed up. It actually went up about 50 feet up into a London plane tree. And it was looking around. It's like, wow, I've never seen one that high before. But I think this might actually be the easiest way to see them around here. They get kind of trapped like a lot of songbirds do. They get into Center City and they get kind of, trapped in among these tall buildings sometimes, or they're flying over. They see this little bit of green space. They think, geez, sun's coming up. That's as good as I'm going to do for habitat. So they pitch in there. And then, that makes them easier to see. Unfortunately, you wonder what happens to a lot of them. And we have seen some window strikes here, but still a treat to get to see them up close, and to see them at all is a treat, but to see them up close is really nice. So, that's been a treat here as well. Alvaro, what do you've been offshore, I know, lately.
Yeah. Back-to-back trip Saturday and Sunday, but this is after arriving from Spain on the evening of Friday. So I basically slept a few hours, then drove down to Monterey and had a boat trip, and came back here and had another boat trip the next day. It was kind of like boom, boom, boom. No, I actually highly recommend it as a, as a way to sort of incorporate your body to a new time zone, just do 2 boat trips, because you're going to be so tired after that it doesn't matter where you were or what was going on, that you're going to sleep well at the right appropriate time of day or
No
night or
choice.
whatever.
No
It's just,
choice in the matter.
That's quite a tip.
I know. It's like a super tip, just like a couple of, long offshore boat trips. Could be fishing, could be birding, could be anything. It's a way to get yourself right back to square one. But yeah, it was good. I mean, we are having this really great year out here, like lots of volume of birds, dolphins, whales. We saw blue whales the other day. And just some oddities, like the short-tailed shearwaters are coming down in big numbers to the Pacific Northwest, and they're sort of starting to sort of show up here much earlier and in larger numbers than usual. We have had a Jaeger show that's unparalleled, just tons of Jaegers attacking, terns and savage gulls, and also, a little smattering of Manx shearwaters, which are really in the wrong ocean, although, we're beginning to believe that they're probably nesting somewhere up in, Southeast Alaska, but they're not always findable. And this year they've been findable, sort of almost, a bird every 2 days. And there's the other story is that there's this short-tailed albatross that keeps going up and down the coast in California that was visible from land the other day in Monterey. And that was like just 2 days after we'd been out there, offshore. So we missed that, but it's kind of cool that it's around. And then Saturday we saw brown booby, and Sunday we saw Nazca booby. So it's just like boom, 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 boom. It's just like, it was, wow. It was like kind of like, like a video game of birding, like just birds coming at you all the time, the whole day, just like, wow.
Hopefully they're not angry with you.
No. Yeah, or they're not trying to eat you like Pac-Man or something. Old school. Yeah, but just really enjoyable trips. Just lots of life. Just what the kind of thing where I always say it's like the Serengeti of the seas. Out there.
Oh, I like that. I've never heard you say that
Mm.
before. That's good, man. Conjures some good imagery. It's good.
Yeah. So
I'm heading out for my first East Coast pelagic the last weekend of September, so I'm going off of Hatteras, and I'm really excited about that. I'm way behind both of you. I talked about my first pelagic a couple episodes ago when I was out off of Kauai, and yeah, that was a super easy one, and I was very nervous about getting seasick because I do deal with that a lot. So I'm stepping it up now, but I'm so excited. I love like the first trip somewhere where I don't care what I see. I'm gonna be happy with any of it. I don't really have a target list. I'm just out to enjoy it, and I don't get that a ton in the U.S. at this point. So it's really exciting to do it on the East Coast as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like an addiction kind of coming on, because it can happen.
Slippery slope, Molly. Slippery slope.
It's it's
it
like
could
hawk
happen.
watching. Like you start hawk watching, like, well, is this going to be that fun? You just sit, and then you're like, oh, I'm hooked. Like you just waiting for a raptor to go over, like looking at the sky longingly. That's what happens with the ocean too.
I wouldn't say that would never happen to me.
Well, I look forward to hearing how that goes. And, one of the best parts about that, Molly, is that you'll get to hear Brian Pattison go through his spiel before everybody gets on the boat, and he tells them about how not to get seasick and the things that you don't do. And he's spiced it off. He spiced it up a bit. Used to be that it was kind of rote, but now he's spiced it up. So yeah, it's I find that part always entertaining. It's like, don't vomit inside the cabin, and make sure you're downwind of everybody, and
like the Southwest flight attendant version of like the airline regulations.
Yeah, just mix in like an Amherst, Virginia accent, and yeah, you're off to the races. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, nice.
It's so funny how like the same kind of thing when you go on a whale watching boat, it's so they're like really super friendly, and they're more like the Southwest people. But if you're on a fishing boat or a birding boat, it's always way more like drastic.
Yeah.
Like, don't do this,
Yeah.
don't do
like
that.
you'll be
Versus,
thrown overboard.
right?
If you bring a
Versus, hey,
banana on
folks,
board.
I know. Hey, folks, we're here to make this a really pleasant experience or whatever. Like that's the whale boats, and the bird boats are like, don't throw up in the cabin.
Yep. I loved our buddy Dave Stayskull used to have a t-shirt that he'd wear on tours, and it would say, "The beatings shall continue until morale improves." It was a great tour shirt. Good for boat captains for sure.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I don't think a lot of people get to be sort of boat captains by, because they were jovial, kind of happy-go-lucky folks, like that they go to boat captaining because you kind of have a super love for birds to see the fish or something, but not necessarily anything else. Sort of exclusionary.
Yep.
A crusty
Well,
old
in
captain.
my limited boating experience, I have been on Hog Island, and those folks, they're happy-go-lucky boat people, and they're just pulling in lobster for dinner as you go. And I guess you can't be sad if you're doing that kind of thing.
I was going to say, no wonder they're happy. Yeah.
Yeah. The camp version, that's a pretty rosy one.
Yeah.
Nice. I got to do that someday. Everyone raves about Hog Island. One thing, one other newsy tidbit I did want to share from recent birding experience was I did my first ever birding in Brooklyn, and I'd never really done any birding hardly in New York City. Friend Chris Bell from the Birders Show was coming up here just for a day, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. You got, New York. You got any recommendations?" He's like, he's British. He's like, "I've never been birding in Eastern North America before." He was like, "I really want to see cardinal and blue jay, downy woodpecker." I was like, "This is awesome. I've totally got to go be a part of that." And so we got on the horn with Doug Gatchfeld, who's, kind of resident Brooklyn expert. And we had a pretty rainy morning. We got real wet real quick, and Chris had to board a flight later that afternoon, and he was like wringing out his socks when we dropped him off at the airport because we got so wet. But we did at the Greenwood Cemetery there. We actually found a Townsend's warbler, which was like a real good bird for anywhere in the East. It was like one of these things. I kind of saw it poke its head out for a second, and I was like, "Was that a black-throated green warbler? Like, I don't think that's what that was." And then I heard Doug kind of go like, "Mrr?" And like he was like all surprised, like what? It was like, "What am I looking at here?" And then we were like, "We better go get our cameras," and we circled the wagons and eventually found that thing got better photos and views of it up in a big bald cypress, and some folks came by and saw it. It was a pretty neat bird to see in the East, so that was real fun.
So was Chris more excited about that, or like the blue jay and the cardinal?
He was definitely more excited. Like the downy woodpecker, I think he was like particularly excited about. But like I think he liked seeing the twitch unfold. He liked seeing like the Brooklyn birders it was like a couple showed up and then a couple more. And then it was like, "Oh, hey, it was like reunion. Everyone's like, I know you. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you." It's like, how it is. That's part of the fun of those rare birds. Everybody sees each other. So I think he enjoyed actually that aspect of it probably more than anything else. But I do remember him when he saw the downy woodpecker. He looked like, sort of like he was like, "Oh," like he had that kind of like, "This is an awesome bird." And I was like, "Yeah, it is an awesome bird. Cute little woodpecker."
Brooklyn twitch. How long does it take for a Brooklyner to come to a rare bird once it's been reported? Like, is it faster than the fire department or roughly?
Yeah, it was pretty fast, man. I think there was somebody that was actually already in another part of the cemetery, and all of a sudden they were like, boom, they were like right there, and but people were popping up like popcorn pretty quick.
Kind of behind side of the gravestones, like just heads come up with binoculars suddenly.
That'd be spooky.
I know.
Cool.
Why
That's
did I
something
go
you
there?
don't see when you're traveling much.
Yeah, you mean like the Twitch?
Yeah, like getting to see local birders come out.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
not really seen that when I'm traveling. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, he totally dug that, and it's true. It's like, when we go on trips, we're looking for the kind of the regular stuff, the stuff that's supposed to be there. So we don't get to see the Twitch very often. So that was pretty awesome.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I'll pivot here. We did have a question from one of our listeners' friends, Adam Betchwell in Georgia Audubon. He's like, hey, I've been enjoying the podcast. He said, one thing that I would love to hear you guys chat about is how you prepare or plan for a birding trip. And he said, really, it could, he'd be interested to hear whether it was a morning outing, a half day trip, or a longer 2-week trip. And for the longer trips, like, how do you study? What equipment do you use? Tips on luggage. And he said he was like, I'm trying to get a new suitcase right now, which is kind of what made me think of all this. But I think it's a question we get a lot in the travel business is like, especially if you're going someplace you've never been before, or if you're even if it's someplace you've been going for a while, how do you brush up and be ready? I'd be curious to hear from both of you, and maybe we'll start with you, Al. Like, you've done a 1,000,001 Chile trips, and then you've done a bunch of new destinations as well. How do you prepare? It might be interesting too to just hear how you prepare for like a Chile trip, like someplace you go a lot. Like, I know you probably don't have to do a ton of prep, but I'm sure you have your routine of getting ready. Maybe you want to share how that works for you.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that you, no matter what, like if you're doing this for a, pleasure or for a job, no matter what, that last couple of days and just before you get going, it's stressful, right? You're trying to get a bunch of things done. There's adrenaline, you're excited, you have limited time, and it all kind of coalesces into the kind of a real stressful situation. So I say minimize the stress, and the way you do that for me is not make a travel checklist, have a travel checklist that you always use and you update after every trip you go on. And it could be an overnight trip, or it could be like a 3-week trip to the Antarctic or something. So that, and with everything on it, like, socks, even things that are really obvious, toothbrush, just everything. You can, some really obvious things, your binoculars, your scope, your camera, your whatever is that you need, because you will forget the most obvious thing actually more easily than the less obvious thing. So if it's all there and you got to cross it out, actually print it out, actually do old school, print it out and cross things out and put little notes, because it might actually create a little shopping list for you too. Like, oh yeah, I need eye drops. I need, it's always those little bits. I don't have a travel toothpaste thing, so you got to go, and just shop for that last minute, or whenever, depending on where you're going. Maybe you can shop for that when you get there. But I find having no stress in the packing, because you have a tried and true list, is key, like totally key. I've got a pretty good memory, but no, don't trust it. Trust your list, and as new things happen, like, I used to have my mini disc player, right? Because I had to play my little mini discs back in the day, or my recorder and all of that.
Yeah.
It's left the list because I don't, I just take my phone now. But you're taking your phone, make sure you put down your charger, right? Because you're going to forget, you're going to take your phone, you're going to forget your cord to charge it. Or oh yeah, I'm going to another country. It's got different plugs.
That's
So
the
take
one,
your little
man.
kit,
Hmm.
for the different plugs or whatever.
I can't. So many trips I've like left and then realized, oh, I don't have the right adapter. It's
Yeah,
like, and then you're like, you got to hope that they have the right one in like the airport or something.
and one thing that I got a tip on that was really a great tip was often, especially if you go to European destinations or developing nations, sometimes you have two plugs in the entire place, like your room or wherever it is. So take not only your adapter, but take a little extension cord with a multiple plug outlet so that you can make I think you probably blow up the electrical system in the place, but
Especially in Europe. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
but that because you're going to need to plug in your computer, your camera for your sorry, yeah, the battery for your camera, your phone, all that stuff. So I would say those are some tips. I have other tips kind of in the COVID world too that I can tell you later. But what
Yeah.
do you think, Molly? What's your thoughts on preparation?
Yeah, I do the same actually. I make a list. I have a terrible memory, so I use it. I am very much a minimalist and try to take the smallest like single backpack that I can on trips. So I also take my list and afterwards I mark anything that I didn't use and see what I can pare down on to not take on future trips. So if you care about that, I would suggest checking your list both before and after the trip and seeing what is unnecessary there. Otherwise, I've invested in like nice clothes that will last a whole trip so that I specifically look for things that I can wash and even in a fairly humid environment, like I can hand wash them in the sink and they'll be dry the next morning. So that I can just take a couple pairs of clothes and layer as needed and go with that. So I've tried to invest in, things here and there over the past few years, and I think it's really helped me with my traveling too. But I keep things as small and light as I possibly can.
I could
I
learn
got to
from
admit,
you.
I'm a heavy traveler. I'm the
Yeah.
opposite. I don't know. Never been able to do that.
I don't think I'm as bad as Al, but I get home and I'm like, man, I didn't use like a third of this stuff. It's like just sat in my suitcase the whole time and I made myself carry it around.
I do recommend this though. So if you've got like pants, your heavier
It's good to
stuff,
have pants. Recommend
good to
pants.
have
Yeah.
pants.
Yeah.
Trousers for the British in the
Mm-hmm.
crowd, so they
Mm-hmm. Yes.
understand what we're talking about. So that you go somewhere, that's got amazing wine.
Oh yeah.
Bring back a couple of bottles, wrap them up in your pants, put it in the middle of your suitcase, and it'll be okay. You can bring back those bottles in that, and they won't break. Knock on wood.
Spoken like a veteran who's done it more than once.
Well, my version of that, using my clothes as multi-purpose, I take one bag now. I guess I'll mention the brand. So I use an f-stop bag, which is just really nice because they come with these big thick inserts that I can fit my scope and tripod and camera lenses and binoculars and all the chargers and everything in that, so it goes in my backpack, and then I just wrap my clothes around all of that as padding, so my clothes go in there too, and everything's contained, and I love it. I am very excited by efficiency on trips, so that makes me happy the whole time.
Are you telling me you don't check in a bag?
No, I hate checking bags. Nope.
Whoa.
I don't.
Wow. That's next
awesome.
level. That is next level. Yeah.
I take one backpack if at all possible. And I generally have like a collapsible bag. That's a mistake that I've made, is not taking a day pack. So I only have the one thing and everything's stuffed in it. But I take something for a day pack and pull it out when I'm there. But otherwise I stick with one bag and it stays with me.
I have like the most massive bag that I check in, and I just put everything in there. I do extra shirts in case I can't wash anything. I'm totally like, I should stop talking because I'm not useful actually in this situation compared to Molly.
Alvaro's tips are terrible. Let's
yeah. We love your podcast, except have that Alvaro guy shut up about travel because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, I will
But-
say I'm not quite as careless if I'm guiding and if I know I'm responsible. Like I'll bring a little first aid kit, or like I'll try to bring little things if I'm responsible for other people. That
Right.
changes the scope a little bit.
But I think it's really good. I mean, you're right though. I take a bunch of stuff. I got a big bag. I never use a whole bunch of it, and I think, why did I do? Yeah. I mean,
Alvaro's
but
like, why did I bring this cinder block and this
yeah,
empty cardboard box and this kettlebell? I don't know.
I thought the lederhosen would be funny. You know, it is Germany after all. So I don't know. Yeah, but it's I also think it is great if you can come back with more than you went out, in a sense, like sort of, like I said, the wine or some
Coffee
things, coffee, or buy a book out there, wherever, just a little bit of that. It's not, obviously if you don't consume anything, that's really great for the environment, but if you're going to consume something, do it in the country you're visiting. So, um, for economic reasons, for that, little benefits that they get, especially like those coffees you can get in some of the birding places we go to that are family run, awesome birding spots and all that.
Yeah, some great coffee and supporting, local businesses. Yeah, I guess if I was going to recommend one thing, and maybe this is like just me, but earplugs. Like bring earplugs, whether it's or noise canceling headphones. But I don't know. You get stuck on a flight and somebody's making a lot of noise, or you end up with a roommate who's whistling like a woodchuck through the whole night, snoring, sawing logs.
I apologize, George.
Yeah, that I'm not naming any names, Alvaro, but yeah, it's to the point where I think I always buy more earplugs before every trip, and I realize that I've got like dozens of earplugs. I don't use them as often but they're like a security blanket for me. But I think especially if you're going someplace where the language is not English, or is not a language I think it's great to at least practice a little bit ahead of time and try to learn like some common, phrases, words that you might use. It just seems like that matters. That can really open some doors if you can learn a few phrases and make people feel like you're making an effort. So I love learning.
That just
like
reminded
slang.
me. A tip that I have if you're traveling, say internationally, or even somewhere where you won't have good phone service or have data, download offline Google Maps. And even if you're using it for just walking around or seeing around a city, that's saved me many times.
Yeah, that's actually a good call. There's also an app that I've used called Maps.me or Maps.me you can download pretty good detailed maps for wherever you're going and use them offline, and that's been real helpful. And you can save points and everything. But I'm sure it's the same with Google. I've just always used Maps.me. Yeah, those are real good. What about learning the birds? How do you guys, Molly, maybe I'll start with you. How do you start if you're going someplace new you haven't been before and you're like, my gosh, I'm going to see a whole bunch of new birds? How do you try to, get a toehold there?
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying I'm absolutely terrible at memorizing things. I'm terrible at studying field guides. I try to, but it just does not work well for me. So I do use eBird a lot, and I go through like the frequencies. I think if you do it by your target species, my main strategy for myself is to really nail down the common birds in an area, and to spend most of my time studying them and really learning the sounds as well. I mean, I think I rely on my ears a lot in birding, so that's something that's really hard to get a hold of when I'm prepping for somewhere I've never been. But I try to focus on those and really separate them out. And then sort of my next layer to the strategy is just kind of getting a better idea of what to expect beyond that, and try to get a good grasp on what what would be the expected birds and what would be in place and out of place. Yeah, so that gets me pretty far. If I'm doing any sort of trip or anything that's sort of a scheduled itinerary, I try to go a day or two early. One, to adjust to the time change because I don't do well with little sleep. So I try to get myself off okay there. But two, just to get to like whatever city parking lot, anywhere I can to just dial in those common birds. If I can get that in place, then I feel like that helps me get my bearings a lot faster.
Yeah, I'm like you that way. I'm not as good at memorizing. I do good in the field if I have a setting for a bird and I get to see it a couple times in the field, or I get to hear it in the field. I can integrate that information pretty quick. Just studying from the page is harder for me. One thing I've started to do too is yeah, like you say, learn the common birds, learn the common sounds. I feel like if you can learn, even just 5 or 6 of the common bird sounds before you get there, you're way ahead of the game. You can really start to, then pick through the stuff that it might be harder to find or that are bigger targets. I think we have a tendency to focus on the big targets, which often aren't necessarily real common. And so you get there and you're listening for this, one thing that's actually not that common. And meanwhile, you're hearing all these other common birds sound off and you're like, oh, I don't even know what those are. So I do think that's a good tip. And often after a trip, if I've scouted a place, I will, when I'm going through my notes and I've made a list of stuff, I'll make a mark next to stuff that is really vocal, that you hear a lot on a daily basis. And that really helps the next time I go back.
That's a good point. If I do have control over my itinerary, I know that I'm way better on day 2 in a location than I am on day 1. So I really like giving myself time to go back to places. And I know I'll be a lot more satisfied if I have that.
Yeah, me too.
For me, I do the eBird bar charts just to see what's common. So because you'll go, if you're going to some tropical spot and there'd be like 300 species on a checklist, but only 50 of them really are common, if that. So you just sort of go through those, and then I look at if it's some place brand new to me, I look at the book and I use a book rather than an app. And there's actually a very specific reason for that, is that the book lays everything out in a way that you visually take in all this information that hasn't been kind of parsed out for you. So in the app, like you click on a species, you get one species, and maybe there's like similar species and you click on that and then you get the similar species, but you've gone through this multi-step process. Well, in a book, you can often say, oh, look, here's all the rosy finches that occur in Bhutan or something, or rose finches, I should say, that occur in Bhutan or something like that. And you're like, oh, okay, that, the eBird says only this one's relatively common. And then I look at it and I don't read anything about it, actually. I just look at the image and the name. And I find that you just look at the picture of it and the name. If you see that thing, what comes to your mind is the name. At least that's the way my brain works. I actually associate the name with the image. And if you can get photographs, go to eBird and actually go, okay, this is the common one. What's it look like? And, look at a bunch of photographs. And I've got to admit that I seldom study the sounds in a brand new place because I find that I'm just not going to know until I get there. And then in the field, I'll learn them. So as the days go by, the common species become more incorporated. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's what a common mina sounds like,
And that's when Molly's mentioned getting in a day or two early. And that's like tremendously helpful, I find, is like you get your feet wet. You learn those, those common sounds pretty quickly. And you're just immediately way ahead of the game.
I do, from just the travel perspective, a couple of things that came up when you guys were talking was Japan. That's a real difficult kind of place for language, right? Where you might be able to learn a couple of words, phrases, but Google Translate, on your phone, where you can actually take a picture of something like a menu and it'll try to translate. It's actually pretty funny sometimes what it comes up with. And, and it's so useful when there is no English and you can do that. The other thing is I always try to get a local SIM card for my phone. I've gotten comfortable with taking out my SIM card, putting in local one, paying for whatever. It's way cheaper. Often you have functionality that's more appropriate in one way or the other to where you're going, because your plan may whatever that depending on what your plan is, and if it's you might say, oh gosh, it's only $10 a day to use my plan. Yeah, well, by 2 weeks it's it's a bunch of money. You could have spent all that on food. In some places it's you can eat for $10 a day, for 2 days.
No, it adds up
some
quick.
places.
Yeah.
So I suggest that, and also using if you're in town or somewhere, you can use Google Maps with your SIM card, to find out where you're going, or even taking trains in a place like Japan. It tells you exactly where to go. Go to the fifth platform at this time of and then get your train to wherever, and you think like, wow, I cannot believe I've just managed this whole thing without messing it up due to the phone, like the smartphone just telling you what to do. And then you can always look, go to the little train station place to get your food, your little bento box and stuff, and what you're eating, and it's cool. I mean, I think cell phones have made things so much easier. I would suggest that.
Yeah. So what's your strategy for finding food in a new place?
Well, I sometimes read. I might study food sometimes more than I study the birds.
I believe that. I believe that story.
That's very fair.
So, I read, like, for example, you go to the bullet train, like the stations all have these super cool little food pack things you can buy, and and so I started reading about them, and each town has their own little different kind of food that's special. So I'll just Google what is special here, or what I should eat there, and do that. Same like if you're in Colombia, what kind of arepa is the local arepa that you want to try out, or
yes,
or just even words for things like and they don't just say cafe in Colombia, they say tinto. You want a tinto. For me, a tinto is a red wine. I didn't know that Colombia tinto was, so you just look up those things like, how do I order this, or what's that? Or I do a little Googling, and I sometimes even buy a book or two about food and place I'm going to, just to sort of get a grounding for how it works. I mean, Spain, it's cheese, vegetables, ham, and you just sort of got to know, well, what's so special about the ham? It's like, what's going on? And, that kind of thing. And then you have context. I like that.
Yeah. The food is
we saw some birds too.
Yeah. And the food is such a big part of the travel experience, especially it seems like for birders. Most of us really connect with the place through the meals. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know gazpacho came in different forms, like there's subspecies, but, you just think, oh, it's just cold tomato soup, isn't it? Oh, no.
Nice.
Adam asked about a suitcase.
Yeah.
So, what style suitcases do you all use?
Well, I think I've got like a 2 or 3 year old Eagle Creek that's pretty big. I like the kind of the soft, it's got the soft bag with kind of the hard shell below. Like if it's say sitting on a couch or a bed as you're packing it, he's got kind of the hard shell, and it's got wheels, and then sort of a soft top. So it's like semi flexible, and you can kind of adjust. There's like belts that help you kind of like pull it tight. So I've got an Eagle Creek. I forget what model it is, but it does have wheels, which I like. And I think for me the key is that I can fit a tripod into my bag. That's kind of a key feature for me. But I don't know. What are you using now?
I have I have a huge bag that basically like a hockey goalie could stuff their stuff into, and still have room, even the stick. Um, and it's a big bag that actually does fold down. So if you ever have to like hide it away, it actually folds down. But there's this brand called Briggs and Riley that I like partially because they do free, repairs, and the repair place is right here in town. So I just take it over. I've had them for years. I just take it over there and they'll just repair a broken zipper or whatever. And they've been so good that I was like, gosh, even though like the last model of this bag that I had was probably a little better, smaller size, and it was a little bit, yeah, this new one's a little big, but it works. I still went with them, and I wanted a soft bag rather than a hard case bag, so that I could, play with it in terms of when you have to store it away in a Galapagos trip. You don't have much storage space on a boat. Just fold it down. But I like the company. I like the concept of you can always get it fixed, and it's like no matter what happened, even if the airline ripped it, they'll fix it for you. So that counts a lot for me. Yeah, they're pricier than other bags, and they have all sorts of different models. But yeah, I like them, Briggs and Riley.
Very cool. I don't even have a bag on wheels at this point. I did have one that had like the 360 wheels. I don't even know what brand it was, but it broke a few years ago, and I haven't taken a big bag anywhere since. So sticking
Wow.
with my f-stop backpack for now.
Nice.
You could get like a little, foldable scooter. That way you could just like wheel yourself around the airports and stuff, and then with your backpack on.
That'd be cool. I have to act like it is over the 50 pounds sometimes. Once you get your tripod and your scope and everything, it adds up. So I try to like act like I'm not tipping over when I'm strapped in and just look like I'm carrying
when
a bag
you're waiting
that's
in
not
line
way
there,
over stuff.
You're like,
Yeah.
No, this isn't heavy at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I go to lift it up and just try to do it fast and hope nothing crazy happens.
Yeah, I have a backpack with my camera and all that I take on board, and it's the same thing. It's really heavy, and I always just do it over the shoulder when I'm going on the plane, like pretending it's like nothing. It's like, hey, everybody. Meanwhile my shoulder's coming up. It's socket. But anyway,
Carrying
you
a
got to
lot
play
of
the
glass.
game.
Yeah. Carrying a lot of glass in those bags.
One topic we should one day, once we get informed or have somebody inform us, I'd love to find out more about all these new mirrorless cameras that are small and lightweight and cool. So I'm providing a topic here.
I like it. Oh, look at this.
Ooh, yeah, you
Yeah,
can't
I can
see
talk.
this, folks.
I just
but
did. Nah, I've got my mirrorless camera. My lens is the same size as my water bottle. That's my comparison there. So that's pretty fun. I just did my first photography workshop, so I just have all this set up here. Last night I did a virtual one
cool.
locally and was just talking about this.
Oh, that'd be great, actually. Educate us on some of this stuff, because I'm thinking, oh man, I feel like I'm being left out, even though my camera's like less than a year old, but it's like a standard camera.
I want to make the switch soon as well. It seems like it's inevitable. It's just
that'd be fun to talk about. Yeah. Short version. Yeah. I didn't consider it until I used it for a month, and then I couldn't go back.
Yeah, and I like the small size of some of the lenses and the cameras and the weight. I mean, gosh, yeah, that alone is appealing. Then you see the crisp focus that some of these cameras are getting. It's like, wow.
The autofocus is real fast on some of these things. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think we're kind of getting over the hump where a lot of companies are really producing a lot of lenses for mirrorless cameras too. Just in the past year or so, there have been a lot more that have come out. So the options are increasing pretty quickly.
Yeah. We got a few minutes here before we wrap up. I was curious, Molly, I know we mentioned on one of the episodes you had been at the Southeast Arizona Birding Festival. Would love to hear what your experience was like there. How did it go?
Yeah. So, I'm not misspeaking. I have to think back. Yeah, this is my first festival since COVID. And I think one of the first birding festivals that was back and in person, and they had a hybrid concept as well where they did some virtual things and whatnot. But went to Arizona. I've been to that festival several times before, and I dearly love it. It's a lot of fun. Um, as far as the experiences that I had there compared to previous years, it was fairly similar overall, and that most of the same field trips were run. A lot of them were drive yourself, some for COVID reasons, well, all for COVID reasons, but also because of availability of vans right now, and festivals adjusting with that. We had a vendor area, and I got to the birding co-op had a booth there, so that was really fun. Wore masks indoors. The workshops were smaller and more limited, I think, than most years, but some did happen. Overall, Arizona is just fun. The birding is just awesome. I would never get tired of it. If you're like in town in Tucson in one of the city parks, it's awesome. If you're up on Mount Lemmon or out in Madera Canyon or whatever, it's awesome too. So it was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always like being near the coast. I'm always like, I want to be, within a couple hours of salt water. But if there's any place on this continent that I think I could live without a coastline being super close. Those sky islands, the cross section habitats there, the quality of the birds, and it's just such a fun place to go birding. I'm glad to hear it's the festival was a good time, because that is a great one, a really fun one.
It really is. Tucson Audubon does a great job putting it on always. They have so many different activities and groups that they support, and it's just fun all the way around.
Yeah. Can't wait to get back to that one. Yeah, there's another one that we all have participated in is the Space Coast Birding Festival, and that is coming up in January, late January of 22. It's been reimagined since the last time they held it. It's going to be real exciting to hear how that goes, and maybe one or two of us here will be in attendance, I hope. I did want to mention a couple other things before we get to final thoughts here. A couple things we thought the audience, our listeners, might enjoy. Another podcast, Nature's Archive. Dr. Doug Tallamy from University of Delaware talks about the magic of oaks and how oak trees are awesome and how we should all plant oaks. If you can plant oaks near you, you can feed a lot of birds. So I'd really recommend that podcast, Nature's Archive. The most recent episode with Doug Tallamy on the magic of oaks was great. Our friends to the north up in Canada on September 19th, they have the 2021 Great Canadian Birdathon. They're raising money for Birds Canada, which is really the organization in Canada that does all sorts of incredible research and conservation and outreach. While the event is happening this September 19th, they're taking donations till the end of the year. So definitely encourage folks to check out the Great Canadian Birdathon. The Global Birding Weekend is coming up. What did we decide? That was October 8th, 9th, and 10th. Global Bird Weekend. Get out and bird that weekend. All your sightings, enter them into eBird. You'll end up being a part of this really cool event. And then also there is a Rethink Birding Travel Expo coming up December 3rd through the 5th. It's powered by our friends at Birdwatchers Digest, and it's all about reimagining travel today in sort of the post-COVID era, or the ongoing COVID era, perhaps I should say. And finally, sort of a personal plug for our friends at the American Birding Association. I wanted to thank them for doing a really, really great profile in their interview section of the magazine there on my father. And Henry T. Armistead was profiled in the latest issue. And Pops, my dad, was just thrilled by the way it all came out. The team there did a really good job. Thanks to them. And thanks for everybody for your feedback on on the interview. It's meant a lot to my dad, who just turned 81 today, as a matter of fact. So that was
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. So anyway, those are a few things I wanted to share. With that, Molly, some final thoughts?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm getting ready for my first East Coast Pelagic, so I can't wait to talk about how that goes. I think this will drop before I head to Outer Banks, so if anybody has recommendations on birding around the Outer Banks, I'll be there the last week of September and would love to hear where to go.
Nice. Yes, that'll be great. We can't wait to hear it goes. And Al, final thoughts your side, amigo?
Well, I was just thinking about Bird Studies Canada, that before they were the Long Point Bird Observatory, and that's where I had my first ever kind of, training as a bander, science, anything. And they took me in as a kind of a young teenager. A lot of people had to sign off on allowing me to go in there and
I'm surprised you got on there, knowing what I know.
And and so I always have a special kind of place for Long Point Bird Studies Canada. They sort of really helped me out when I was just a annoying little bird nerd kid.
Yeah, that's a great organization. Our friends Jody Allaire, Yusuf Atia, and others there doing really, really good work. Cool beans, guys. Well, looking forward to doing this again, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Cheers, Al and Molly.
All right. Thank you.
See you next time.
See you all.